Since the arrival of Tekken in 1994 in arcades and later in 1995 to households with the adaptation to PlayStation, Tekken has grown and quickly become a staple of the fighting genre, and has even reached the status of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And like any good fighting game worth its salt with that kind of status, it has to have an amazing storyline, one which grips the player into continuing. But the story also has to unfold with any character the player chooses to finish the game with, and that's exactly what Tekken does. Having said that, there is a constant in the story and an original ending, which progresses the story into the newer versions of the game, meaning that there is only one particular character ending for the game which is considered the real ending. At the core of the Tekken game series is a family, and you can boil down the story of Tekken to no more than a family feud, but then you have to add the layers on top, which to me at least is what makes Tekken such an amazing story to fight your way through. The Mishima bloodline is the family in which the story revolves around, and the family is also one of the wealthiest in the world, owning what is known as the Mishima Zaibatsu. A Zaibatsu is basically a company which consists of multi-industry entities which make up a conglomerate under a singular banner within Japan. The family heritage outside of the Zaibatsu was one of strength and power. Mishimas were known for their prowess in strength and martial arts. Wolves amongst sheep. They were just built different and praised power over all else. The story begins with Heihachi Mishima, who is the current head of the Mishima Zaibatsu. He was once married to Kazumi Mishima, who was his childhood friend and training partner, and eventually they fell in love, got married and had a child, Kazuya. As time passes, Kazumi begins to fall ill. Not ill like you or I. Kazumi is the carrier of what is called a devil gene, which mutates the bearer into a devil form. Kazumi transforms into Devil Kazumi and reveals to Heihachi that she never loved him, and the reason she got married to him was that the clan in which she came from foresaw his attempted dominion over the world, and she was sent to kill him. Now, being a Mishima, Heihachi wasn't taking any threat lying down. It's just not the Mishima way. So he ends up killing Kazumi. Heihachi ends up turning his eyes to his son, Kazuya, and starts to train him hard, pushing little 5-year-old Kazuya to inhuman limits. Kazuya not meeting the requirements Heihachi had set. Heihachi sees Kazuya as weak and, just like the Spartans of old, throws his only son off a cliff. Kazuya's fall severely wounded him with a massive scar on his chest to show for it, and it sparked a deep-seated hatred within him for Heihachi. This awoke within Kazuya his devil gene which he inherited from his mother, Kazumi. The first Tekken game, released in 1994, takes place some 21 years after the fateful events of Kazuya getting yeeted off a cliff, where Heihachi and the Mishima Zaibatsu are hosting the King of the Iron Fist tournament. As the Mishimas respect power above all else, Heihachi is looking for an heir to the Zaibatsu. Even though he has adopted a Chinese orphan in Li Chao Lan, he wasn't convinced that Li was worthy. So, the general idea was to attract the world's strongest fighters, and whomever could make it to the end of the tournament and best Heihachi in one-on-one combat would be the heir to the Zaibatsu. This was Kazuya's opportunity to kill two birds with one stone, the first of which is way more important to Kazuya, in seeking revenge upon his father for the attempted murder at the cliff, and secondly, claiming his birthright as the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu. As you conclude the game with Kazuya, you see he drops Heihachi from the very same cliff that Kazuya was thrown from at the end, thus making Kazuya the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu. You could also view it as Kazuya honouring his father and the Mishima bloodline by becoming the strongest. 2 years passed since the events of the first tournament, and Kazuya has taken the Mishima Zaibatsu down some illegal roads, which in result has made the Zaibatsu corrupted, however more powerful in terms of its reach. Kazuya has the Zaibatsu engaging in capturing endangered animals and experimenting on them, which could be argued this is the result of the devil gene running rampant through him. Kazuya has painted multiple targets on his back with his actions at the head of the Zaibatsu, and has an arrest warrant out for him from an animal rights activist group. The operative in charge of bringing in Kazuya is Jun Kazama. It's revealed that Heihachi, like his son, survived the cliff yeeting, and also climbed his way back up, and has begun training to overthrow Kazuya and to retake back his Zaibatsu and restore its glory. Knowing all this, Kazuya announces the second King of Iron Fist tournament to lure out his pursuers and his father to put an end to them once and for all, and throws up a cash prize of $1 trillion. And now we get to the game of Tekken 2, which was released in 1995 to arcades and then to PlayStation in 1996. Jun enters the tournament to apprehend Kazuya, and when she is finally face to face with him in the arena, she can sense the evil coursing through him thanks to his devil gene, and wants to free Kazuya from this evil force which is plaguing him. Jun and Kazuya find themselves attracted to one another, and as a result of this, Jun withdraws from the tournament. Kazuya and Jun end up getting intimate, which allows Jun to weaken the devil gene's hold on Kazuya by creating an emotional conflict within him. Back over to Heihachi, who is working his way through the roster of fighters to get his grand prize of Kazuya, only to fall short and to be defeated by Paul Phoenix in the semi-finals of the tournament. However, Heihachi is reinstated in the finals as Paul Phoenix is forced to forfeit as he was unable to get to the arena on time. With Heihachi reinstated, it was time for a rematch and a score to be settled one way or another. Father and son engage in battle once more, and the devil gene consumes Kazuya, changing him into devil, but this time around, Kazuya is no match for Heihachi, and this is due to the conflict which was inspired by Jun. Within Kazuya is the conflict of good and evil, which is manifested by Devil and another unknown entity in the game called Angel, which set Kazuya in his devil form off balance, allowing Heihachi to clutch the victory. Having regained the Mishima Zaibatsu, Heihachi seized his victory and cast Kazuya's unconscious body into an erupting volcano. 15 years passed since Heihachi has retaken the Mishima Zaibatsu, and the world has known a type of peace, which is a bit odd coming from a bloodline which respects power, but not all is as it seems. During this time, Heihachi has created the Tekken Force, a paramilitary group dedicated to the protection of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and Heihachi has been putting them to work, and he now knows there are other forces in the world which aren't human and are immensely powerful, which Heihachi is wishing to gain control and gain knowledge on their fighting prowess. One such entity is Ogre, who hails from an ancient temple in Mexico. Heihachi sends some of the Tekken Force in to apprehend Ogre, only to learn that they have all been obliterated by the entity, and now it's carving a path through the world's strongest fighters. Jun Kazama is living a quiet, peaceful life with her son, Jin Kazama, who is the child of Kazuya Mishima from their rendezvous during the second King of Iron Fist tournament. Jun is sensing that Ogre is running about and that she is potentially a target. Jun warns Jin that should the worst happen, he is to seek out his grandfather, Heihachi Mishima. Around Jin's 15th birthday, Ogre strikes, and Jin runs headfirst to meet Ogre. Despite Jun's pleas for her son to flee, Jin is quickly dispatched by Ogre and knocked out cold. When he awakens, he sees their house in ruin and burning, and Jun nowhere to be found, but it's safe to say with Ogre's track record, she's dead. Jin is confronted by the devil gene, passed on from his father, and at this point Jin is thirsty for some payback against Ogre, and as such, Jin is branded on his left arm as a pact, a promise of power and vengeance. Jin seeks out his grandfather Heihachi Mishima and explains everything to him. Heihachi agrees to take Jin under his wing and sends him to the Mishima High School, where a few characters are introduced by way of Jin's classmates, Zhao Yu and Huara. 4 years pass and Jin is now a master of the Mishima fighting style, and on his 19th birthday, Heihachi announces the third King of Iron Fist tournament. Heihachi figured Ogre has a taste for fighters, and by consolidating them in one area is like ringing the dinner bell for Ogre to come running, meaning the entire tournament is bait to lure Ogre out into the open, and thus the arrival of Tekken 3 in 1997 for arcades and in 1998 for homes on the PlayStation console. Now, the actual ending for the game is that Paul Phoenix makes his way into the finals and beats Ogre. However, as the Tekken Force attempts to restrain an unconscious Ogre, they are absorbed by Ogre and are killed in the process. Ogre mutates into his true fighting form named True Ogre, at which point Paul has already left the arena. So Jin is reinstated as he was Paul's last opponent prior to the final, and Jin faces down and defeats True Ogre. Despite this victory, Jin is then rushed and gunned down by the Tekken Force, which is being led by his grandfather Heihachi, who no longer needs his grandson and pulls the trigger on an execution-style shot to Jin's head. Jin is revived almost immediately by his devil gene, and his body is now mutated. He has sprouted black feathery wings from his back and smashes Heihachi through a wall before flying off into the night sky. 2 years pass since the events of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 3, and Heihachi and his team of scientists have managed to acquire samples of Ogre's blood. The Mishima bloodline respecting power before all else, Heihachi puts his scientists to work to splice Ogre's power with himself by way of genetics, only for it all to fail, and this is due to Heihachi not having the devil gene within him. The devil gene is the missing piece of the puzzle to make Heihachi immortal by fusing Ogre's powers with himself. Heihachi then looks to his bloodline, knowing that his son and grandson carry the devil gene, but Jin hasn't been seen since the events of the third tournament. However, Heihachi gets information that Kazuya's remains have been recovered by the rival G Corporation, who specialize in genetic research. Heihachi sends out his Tekken force to raid and recover his son's remains, only for the Tekken force to be wiped out by the prodigal son himself. G-Corp has resurrected Kazuya not long after his death. Unknown to all, Jin fled to Brisbane, Australia, and gave himself an imposed training regimen to unlearn the Mishima fighting style after the events which took place in Tekken 3, and to learn the traditional karate fighting style, as now Jin despises his family legacy since Heihachi's betrayal. Heihachi needed to get Jin and Kazuya out from the shadows to complete his plans of immortality, so he announces the King of Iron Fist 4 and putting down ownership of the Zaibatsu once again as bait. Tekken 4 was released in 2001 in arcades and on PlayStation 2 in 2002. In the final stages of the fight, Kazuya and Jin were to face off against each other. However, Jin was ambushed and captured prior to the match. As such, Kazuya was the winner by default, leading him to the final round with Heihachi. Kazuya ends up questioning his father in regards to his opponent's disappearance, and the two enter combat once more, where Heihachi emerges victorious. Instead of dispatching Kazuya, Heihachi leads his son to a Mishima temple called Honmaru, where Jin is found chained and unconscious. Heihachi had plans to ensnare Kazuya as well in order to relieve the two of their devil powers, so that it can be used for his own purposes. However, Devil ends up taking control of Kazuya and reveals to Heihachi that 21 years ago, upon Kazuya's death, half of its energy was separated from itself and bided its time to possess Jin, and right now, Heihachi has led Devil back to its other half to regain full strength. Devil knocks out Heihachi with his telekinetic abilities and turns his attention to Jin, probing and tormenting him subconsciously. At this point, Kazuya has figured out a way to merge himself holistically with his devil gene, making them one singular entity. In doing this, Kazuya has taken back control of his own body and calls out to Jin, which stirs his son awake. Enraged, Jin unleashed an unrelenting attack on Kazuya and manages to defeat him. Heihachi suddenly regains his consciousness and Jin engages and attacks Heihachi, and as Jin is about to land a killing blow, a memory of his mother, or was her soul actually there calling to her son, to make Jin better than his bloodline. Jin spares Heihachi's life, and as he departs into the night sky, a single white feather can be seen falling from his wings. Could this be the work of Angel? Moments after Jin's departure, the G Corporation attacks Honmaru, deploying Jack androids into the temple of Honmaru to annihilate the father and son duo of Heihachi and Kazuya. The two fight side by side until Kazuya leaves Heihachi to die, where Jax pin down Heihachi and then self-destruct, leveling the Honmaru temple and surrounding area. Heihachi Mishima is declared dead, and it's assumed that the Mishima Zaibatsu would soon fall. However, it doesn't, and the Zaibatsu is being controlled from the shadows. 2 months later, the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament is announced. Tekken 5 was released in arcades in 2004 and into homes on the PlayStation 2 in 2005. Kazuya fights a new character called Raven, and in interrogating him, learns that the G Corporation betrayed Kazuya and ordered his execution. But he also found out something that was awakened in the incident at Honmaru. Kazuya realizes the depths of his father's madness and believes that Kazuya's grandfather Jinpachi Mishima was confined under the temple in Honmaru from a coup that Heihachi led 40 years ago. But Jinpachi was now possessed by a vengeful spirit, giving Jinpachi unimaginable power and extended life. And because Honmaru was leveled, he has now been let loose upon the world. Jin is back in the tournament, and in the later stages fights off against his old classmate Hwarang. Jin knocks Hwarang unconscious, and because he is unable to continue, Jin is seen as the victor and is allowed to continue. Jin faces off against Jinpachi Mishima and emerges the victor, at which point Jinpachi Mishima fades to dust, being freed from the vengeful spirit, and Jin is now the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu. Jin, now the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, uses the resources at his fingertips to declare the Zaibatsu's independence, severing all national ties and declaring war on all nations within a year. In the interim, Kazuya Mishima has been busy and is now the head of the G Corporation and places a bounty on his son's head. And in retaliation to this, Jin announces the 6th King of the Iron Fist tournament to lure his father out into the open. Tekken 6 was released in 2007 in arcades and on PlayStation 3, and then in 2009 on Xbox 360. While the tournament is taking place, so is the war on the world from the Mishima Zaibatsu, which is bringing into light a new character called Lars Alexanderson, who was a field leader of the Tekken Force. Lars rebelled from the Tekken Force, and in a skirmish against G-Force, Lars loses his memory. Moving through the world, Lars is avoiding his manhunt from the Mishima Zaibatsu and trying to recover his memories. As he does so, it is revealed that Lars is actually a bastard son of Heihachi Mishima, who is in fact still alive and trying to find a way to wrest control of the Zaibatsu from Jin, making Kazuya and Lars brothers. Lars ends up facing off against the leaders of the Mishima Zaibatsu, where Jin reveals he had been keeping tabs on him all along by way of his android companion Alyssa Boskonovich, at which point Lars is forced to stand off against his android companion, and when confronted, she departs with Jin to Egypt. Lars follows Jin to Egypt to find out what Jin is after. In his travels, he meets another new character to the game, an archaeologist named Zafina, who fears an evil entity which resides in Egypt called Azazel. Lars pursues Jin into an ancient temple where he is also confronted by Kazuya, who has similar plans of confronting his son. Kazuya and Lars engage in combat, and Lars manages to defeat Kazuya. While Kazuya flees the scene, Lars is then faced with Azazel itself. Lars again is victorious, but is then forced to fight against Alyssa and has to damage her to survive. Enraged at what he has done, Lars attacks Jin as he was mocking the android's failure. Following his defeat at the hands of Lars, Jin admits that he purposefully set up the war to make Azazel manifest in physical form, as it can only do so by feeding off the negative energies in the world, so Jin made an all-you-can-eat buffet. Jin wanted Azazel in physical form so that Jin could destroy it, and in turn free himself from the devil gene, as Azazel can only be destroyed by one carrying the devil gene. At which point Azazel comes back for more, and Jin manages to kill Azazel. After the events of the 6th King of Iron Fist tournament, the war between the Mishima Zaibatsu and the G Corporation rages on, even though Jin destroyed Azazel. Jin is still absent and lost in the desert from the battle with Azazel, so Nina Williams is now in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu in Jin's place. Heihachi, ever the opportunist, seizes the moment and forces Nina to work for him, thus putting Heihachi back in the seat of power. Heihachi is now bent on exposing his son for the monster he truly is as the head of G Corporation, which he hopes will sway public opinion back in favour of the Zaibatsu. To do this, he strikes a deal with the Serious Marksman organization, to which we meet the head of the organization called Claudio Serafino. And he is sensing a powerful force in the Far East, which is not connected to Jin or his father Kazuya. United Nations intelligence groups have located Jin. However, with the assistance of his half-uncle Lars, Jin manages to avoid capture and is whisked away to safety so he can recoup. Lars is shown to be working with his adopted brother Li Chaolan. The force in the Far East is revealed to be none other than Akuma from Street Fighter, who made a promise to Kazumi, Kazuya's mother, that should Kazumi fail to kill Heihachi and Kazuya, that he would do it for her in her place. Akuma meets Heihachi in battle, and Akuma defeats Heihachi. Heihachi, however, did in fact survive the encounter, but allowed himself to be declared dead to the public, which set Akuma off in search of Kazuya, which allows Heihachi to continue his schemes privately. Kazuya and Akuma battle on top of G Corporation's Millennium Tower, and while this fight happens, Kazuya reveals his full devil form, at which Heihachi has a team close by to take pictures of what Kazuya really is before Heihachi uses a satellite-based weapon to destroy Kazuya and the Millennium Tower. Kazuya, in full devil form though, won't go down so easily and manages to survive the onslaught from the weapon, and in turn, destroys the weapon. Heihachi is brought knowledge that a reporter is writing an expose to reveal the whole Mishima mess, and to the reporter's surprise, Heihachi offers to meet with the reporter, retelling the night the love of his life revealed to him her true intentions, and that she fell to the devil gene, and he had no choice but to kill his beloved in self-defense. Which is what ultimately has caused the Mishima household to be in its current state, for Heihachi feared that his son carried the devil gene, which was passed down to him from his mother, which is why Heihachi threw Kazuya off the cliff all those years ago, because if Kazuya survived, he knew his son also possessed the gene. Heihachi ensured that the reporter was escorted to safety and made for a volcano for the final confrontation with Kazuya. Kazuya learns of his mother's treachery and now considers both of his parents betrayers. His father's ultimate betrayal is that Kazuya was never told that his mother wanted to kill him and his father, which if he knew, would we have landed where we are now? Kazuya deals the actual killing blow on Heihachi and casts his mortal body into a volcano, at which point Akuma re-emerges and their battle continues. The outcome of that is yet to be foreseen. In the chaos which comes, Jin awakens and vows to put an end to the war by defeating Kazuya. And now, we're up to Tekken 8, which releases on the 26th of January in 2024. But that brings you up to speed with the Mishima bloodline and what's happening in that core story. I'm personally excited to see what comes next. Will Jin keep his word and end the war, or will Kazuya win out and engulf the world? Is it possible that Angel might return to turn the tide? What are you hoping to see from the game, and what are your predictions for the story? Either way, we're going to find out soon. And I know with this video I did overlook a lot of characters and cross-character references and development, but the overall idea was just to cement and bring forward the Mishima bloodline story. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.